Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 402. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today, we got Kevin Rakeshaw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, hi.
Yeah, this week on the show, we'll be taking a look at the revenge thriller Violation, which is currently streaming on Shudder. Also, be going over what we've been watching on the watch list and going over this week's new releases on VOD and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Please remember to review us on iTunes if you get a moment. That would be super helpful. The only bit of housekeeping I have this week is that the new episode of Saved by the 90s dropped at the end of the week last week. So if you haven't given that a listen yet, be sure to do so. Ken picked up HBO Max subscription, so we framed the whole episode around Ken's HBO Max subscription.
Yes.
Which I thought was pretty funny. Like he told me, like he messaged me. And I apologize if you already listened to me tell this, or Ken tell this anecdote on the show, but he messaged me and he was like, hey, I got an HBO Max subscription for at least a month, so if there's anything for this month that you want to cover that might be on there, I can watch it. And I was like, well, why don't we just do the whole episode about you getting HBO Max? So we watched Point Break. We did Swingers, we did Blade, and we did Bowfinger.
Yes.
So it was a really good time. Man, revisiting Blade was an absolute blast. And Ken, not only did he never see Blade before, but he didn't know anything about Blade. Like he had.
Wow.
It somehow eluded him, so he knew very little going into it. Like he knew very basic things, and he was blown away.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Yep.
I did not know Bowfinger was in the 90s.
Yeah,
I mean 99, but still.
Yeah, 99. It doesn't really feel like a 90s movie. It does feel newer than that.
I would never have guessed.
That movie doesn't really... It's not great. Eddie Murphy is so good as Jiff in it, though. The character with the braces. The adult braces. Oh, my God. Anyway, yeah, be sure to check that out. It'll be available on wherever you get your podcasts, Saved by the 90s. Before we get into our review this week, I do want to sort of tack on a warning, a content warning at the beginning of this, because this movie does deal with some pretty serious subject matter, and I just want to get that out up front that we are going to be discussing themes of sexual violence in this review. I want to try to avoid spoilers, but I think it's going to be really difficult to do that in this movie, just because it's sort of a slow burn and there's a lot of build up. So really, most of the stuff that's worth talking about would be considered spoilers, I believe. So we'll have to see how the conversation progresses. But if you don't want to hear us talking about some really difficult subject matter, maybe just look at the time code, skip ahead to when we go into the watch list.
Just do something else. Just turn it off.
Don't turn it off. Just skip ahead to the watch list. Don't turn it off. Okay, so we're talking about Violation. This is directed by Dusty Mancinelli and Madeline Sims Feuer. I have a synopsis here. A troubled woman on the edge of divorce returns home to her younger sister after years apart. But when her sister and brother-in-law betray her trust, she embarks on a vicious crusade of revenge. So you have your kind of typical rape revenge movie here. Kevin, we'll start it with you. What were your initial impressions of Violation?
This one, I don't know. This is a movie wherein, like, it's a good movie. I think I am confident in saying that. But it's also a movie that I think that you could present me with an argument of it being a bad movie or an argument of it being a good movie, and I would probably agree with you either way. I'm just kind of like I'm in the middle, and I'm so easily swayed by this. One of the main thing I think that gets me with movies like this and their ilk is we see so many of these movies now in the last couple of years where they're this rape revenge film, and it's always kind of presented or sold as like, oh, it flips the whole rape revenge genre on its head, like just completely different than anything you've ever seen. And I'm always like, for some reason, I'm always like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But like they never do. Like they never even come close. And and again, it's not necessarily the movie's fault. I think it's more so the marketing. You're trying to sell this. So I get that. And I should just not pay attention to that whatsoever. But for whatever reason, I always get sucked in by that. And I don't know why, because I don't really care about rape revenge movies to begin with.
Yeah, I didn't really see or read anything about this, so I knew that it was probably going to be a rape revenge movie just looking at the title and reading the synopsis. So I had a suspicion that that's what it was going to be, but I didn't really read anything about it being anything different. So I guess I didn't really have that expectation going into it. But I agree with you in that, like, yeah, a lot of these types of movies are like, they claim to bring something new or different to the table, and at the end of the day, it's the same stuff. I think that like a movie like Revenge is the pinnacle of the rape revenge movie. I think I said this back when Revenge came out, that we don't need another rape revenge movie, because I think that that movie like puts a period on the whole thing. Like we don't need any more of them. That's because that's the end. But I think movies like Promising Young Woman, they kind of that movie did put a new spin on it. And I think that a movie like that, seeing Violation so closely to when I saw Promising Young Woman, I mean, there's been a span of months, but at the same time, with movies that deal with this kind of subject matter, I feel like one a year is my limit.
Yeah,
I think that movie has more to say, but I think that this movie it does have its own voice, and I think that there's some interesting things that get explored here. I think visually it's quite good. I think that technically it's a very good looking movie.
Oh yeah.
I think that it's very well shot. I think it's very well directed. I think that the performances are solid across the board. And I like the way that they handled certain aspects of it. There's some really difficult scenes in this movie. There is a sexual assault that happens. First of all, I like the situation in and of itself. Not to say I like it, but I like that this specific type of situation is represented, because you don't see that a lot in this. In movies.
I was going to say that was the one defining feature about this movie that made it distinctive, is that the sexual violence, the sexual assault that's the center of this, is something that you don't really see in movies. This isn't what you normally see, where it's like
a violent attack.
A violent attack, and it's vicious, and then she's got to get her revenge. Like the revenge part is still there, but the sexual assault is not.
Yeah,
like equally as violent as the revenge is.
And I think that I think that the fact that one of the co-directors of this film is a woman, I think that goes a long way to exploring the nuance of what an event like that can do to someone, and how it can affect them, and how the other person involved doesn't even he's too stupid to realize what he's done. And I think that more movies should explore that. It's not always just a violent attack. There are more nuanced things that happen in real life. And you know, I was thinking like during this whole thing, and this is not has nothing to do with like the movie as a criticism or anything, but I was thinking to myself like, you know, you always see these rape revenge movies and they're always like empowering and all of this stuff, but like there's almost never a rape revenge in real life, you know? Like there's there's almost never a revenge portion of it in real life, and it just made me sad.
Because the majority of it is just like a male fantasy.
Yeah.
You know, that like, and that's the thing that's slightly unfortunate about this movie is that it goes that route where like, okay, I understand that like the rape portion of this is different than other movies, but like the revenge portion of the movie is pretty much like everything else that you've ever seen, really. And it lifts directly because it's super fucked up, but it lifts to like directly from a Shakespeare play, just about. So, which is really disturbing, really fucked up.
Yeah.
But, again, it goes down that path of like the male fantasy of like just absolutely fucked up revenge.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. It should be noted that the director of this film, Madeline Sims Feuer, she stars in this movie as well, and she also directed not one, not two, but 4 other movies that deal with sexual assault or like dark sex fantasies and stuff like that. So this is definitely something. It's definitely familiar territory for her to deal with this this kind of subject matter. So I think that all of that was tackled in a very non-exploitative way. I think that it was handled very well. At the end of the day, it is just another rape revenge movie. So just know that going into it. I didn't really think that it brought much more to the table, and I didn't think that it necessarily brought much more to the conversation other than what we had already talked about, with it being a little bit more of a nuanced situation. I like what happens with the sister. I think that that's really important to represent in a movie like this as well. And I want to come back. I mean, we have to talk about the violence in this movie, because it is, you know, if you've listened to this show, you'll know that I'm the horror movie guy. Like I watch every horror movie. I love them. So I don't get squeamish when it comes to horror movies. Typically, I don't mind blood and guts and gore and all of that stuff. But the level of, it's not like that this is a particularly violent movie throughout.
It's not a gore fest.
No, it's like literally two scenes. Like we'll say 2 scenes that happen. One in particular that is so like, I don't want to say jarring, because you know that it's happening, like you know that it's going to happen, but it is so brutally realistic that I mean, you could probably show that scene to someone who like maybe is a bit naive, and they would think that it's like, or better yet, what you could do is like put a filter over it, you know, like some Adobe Premiere like VHS filter or something, and someone could easily think that it was real, because it looks so real that I was shocked. Like it's an absolutely shocking scene. And then there's another scene that happens very shortly after that to me looked equally real. And like it was some of the best prosthetics like / makeup effects that I've seen in a very long time. Like, I mean, it blew me away at how real it looked.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing for me, is like the technical aspects of this, is that I will say it's a good movie because of those technical aspects. But again, like you could easily convince me that this is not a good movie, and I'd be like, yeah, I see your point. But those 2 things in particular, because the first one that you're talking about is really just, it's disgusting.
Like my heart rate
It's
increased. Like I could feel my heart rate increase when that happened. Like just the whole scene. I was just like, I was very affected by it, and it's so rare that happens to me.
And it's a two-pronged thing. First is the whole setup of that sequence, and in a sense that they, before you learn what the sexual assault is, you essentially get it from the point of view, like a retelling from the perpetrator, which I thought was interesting. And it comes across as, very naive. It didn't seem like that big of a deal, but that something's going on. That's not the whole story. You know what I mean? So the structure of it, I found interesting, and then the way in which that they shoot that is it's super realistic, just incredibly so. I'm pretty sure that guy's just dead. Like they murdered someone for this movie. And second is the choice to, like, her reaction to it and like kind of forcing you to have almost the same reaction.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to.
Yeah.
I wanted to very badly, but I didn't have protective stuff on my floor. But it was close. It was close. I had to mute it. I couldn't.
Yeah, I had a really difficult time with it. Like I'm not some wuss when it comes to this either, but it is just, man, it is so intense, and rightfully so. I mean, I don't think it's an undeserved scene or anything like that. I mean, it's an incredibly powerful and very provocative scene in a lot of ways. But yeah, it is really, really intense.
Yes.
I did like, just to touch on what you had already mentioned, I liked the non-linear structure of it, how we start at one point and then we go and fill the pieces in as it progresses. Yeah. I liked that too. I just going back to the visuals, this all takes place in this sort of mountain cabin area. I like the location. I like the feeling of like sort of being in the forest and like the rain coming through on the trees and like moss and all of that stuff. And they do lots of close-up shots in this. Like everything's pulled in really, really close to characters and like bugs and animals, and like I think that there's lots of symbolism with like spiders and like the wolf or coyote or whatever that was eating the rabbit and that type of thing. I liked all of that. I thought that all looked quite good.
Yeah, and I like I said, and I agree that I found the structure interesting. It was at first, I gotta say, super confusing. Like there was just like a split second where we were at a certain point and then we're at a different point, and I was just like, "Whoa, did I accidentally like skip ahead?"
Yeah, I was
accidentally skip on the. So I actually had to like rewind because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I fucked this up somehow.
Somehow I fucked up watching a movie, hitting play on a movie. No, I was also confused with it, especially because you're like, when did this occur? Like, when did she have time to do this, and then also like be with her sister, and like how much time has passed, and like where does it all fall? Because there was also supposed to be like guests arriving, right? So
yeah,
there was a lot of like weird stuff going on there with that, and then. So yeah, I was initially confused too before you figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
I thought that the whole storyline with her and her deteriorating relationship with her husband, I think that maybe that did help with setting things up and sort of creating her state of mind for all of this. But I also felt like I wanted a little bit more with their relationship. Like I just really didn't think there was enough there.
Yeah, I it's interesting because you read the synopsis of A Troubled Woman on the Edge of Divorce. I didn't know that they were married. Like, I don't know if I missed that.
I didn't know they were married either. I don't know if it ever says that.
Like they did not seem like a married couple.
No, I didn't think they were married like that until I read the synopsis. I did not think they were married. So
Yeah, I thought that was really the only thing that was kind of lacking.
yeah,
But it's not a big deal. I didn't think it
no,
really necessarily, ruined a movie for me by any means.
no. I don't think so. But yeah. So I will give Violation a light recommend. I just think it's really important that you understand what you're in for when viewing it. I will say that the actual scene that sparks all of this, all of the everything that happens later on, I think that the way they shot that too, keeping with this sort of super close up style, was very effective. It is again not your typical sequence that we've seen in a lot of these other movies. It's softer. It's like softer, but it's still difficult.
And without trying, like, I'm trying to describe this without spoiling it, is that it does a good job of visually representing, like, kind of her mind state or her, like, where she's at. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't. I want to be careful not to give too much.
Yeah, I think that it was the way that they did it was really smart and extremely effective. So there's a lot of things I think that I can understand where you're coming from, Kevin, where you say, like, if someone comes to you with the argument that this is not a very good movie, like I could understand that as well. But I think that when you look at sort of the sum of all of its parts, it all adds up to being a really kind of powerful experience. And it's a movie that I'm definitely not going to be forgetting anytime soon. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it just, like, it went to a different level of fucked upness at the end. That, because I was kind of thinking, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that that's what I think it is. And then they kind of, they come back to it at the end where she's kind of like surveilling, looking out at all the guests eating their ice cream. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
That's, Gotcha. See what you're going for.
I also had so many questions. I had so many questions about her and her background because, like, she knows exactly what to do every step of the way.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that kind of comes back to, like, the male fantasy part of this, is where she, like, if I'm taking this at face value, either A, this woman has done this.
She's done it before. Yeah,
she's a pro. She's a goddamn pro. Or B, this is the first time, but she's been thinking about it for like 20, 25 years. Doing a lot of research, dry runs.
Yeah, I mean, she knew exactly what to do every step of the way. She had like the all the Tide bottles and everything. Like, she knew what was going on. But they did allude to her being a little, I don't know if possessive is the word, overly protective of her sister, I guess. But there was, like, some sort of a conversation that they had earlier on in the film about it. And again, I will reiterate that this is a bit of a slow burn. It's not like action wall to wall or anything like that. But I think that they do the slow burn very, very well in this too. And I think that the fact that it is sort of a non-linear structure, I think that helps with it, because it allows for you to have some of those more intriguing pieces that happen towards the end sprinkled in throughout as we're, building up to that big crescendo.
Yeah.
So, Violation, let's go ahead and give it a score. I'm kind of sitting in around a 6 on this one.
Kind of thinking like a 5.5. And I think that's the thing that gets me, is the revenge part of this. I think so much of this film is good, and then the revenge part is just you've seen it before. Not necessarily exactly what happens here, but just like the violence of it. It just feels disconnected from the rest of the movie. in a
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah. If you want to see Violation, it is available on Shudder right now. So if you have Shudder, it is available on there. I will say that, like, as far as the Shudder originals, this is definitely up there as one of the higher quality ones. I think some of the Shudder originals have been okay, but nothing is. I feel like this one is definitely a step above, like, quality
Yeah.
wise.
The production values on this are
Yeah.
quite good, even for being it being a pretty small independent movie.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous film. All right, let's talk about some of what we've been watching. I saw a ton of stuff because we were off last week, and then South by Southwest happened. So I'm not going to go over everything that I saw at South by Southwest. I think I'll just highlight some of the notable things. I guess I'll start off with that. Let's see. The Spine of Night is one that I feel like people should keep a lookout for. This is directed by Philip Gillott and Morgan Galen King, and it's an animated film, hand rotoscoped, and it is a dark fantasy that it features this sort of shaman woman who has to basically take down this kind of evil scholar guy who acquires these plants that were grown from the corpse of a god and give people godlike abilities.
Yes.
So you can do different shit with these plants. So you can, like, crumble them up and smoke them, or just eat them straight, or rub them on you, or, like, chew them up and spit them out into your hands like a little salve. Like a little salve.
You want to fuck around with some plants?
Yeah. It's these blue plants, and they do all kinds of shit. Like, they can do so much stuff. I mean, they can, like, pretty much turn you into a god. And there's this, like, small tribe that's been using them to, like, heal the sick and stuff like that. And this scholar, when he finds, and they're also using it to sort of keep the swamp alive, like the mother swamp. It's a pretty big kind of sprawling fantasy epic, and it's awesome. Like, it's an hour and a half long, but they pack so much into it. World building is on another level here. I loved the world building. There's, like, all of these different, like, tribes and factions, and there's these, like, people that wear these, like, wingsuits and stuff, and then there's this sort of this, because it jumps forward like hundreds of years in time. So then, like, later on, they're almost in this, like, it's almost a steampunk kind of world, and it's really good. The voices are done by Richard E. Grant, Lucy Lawless, Patton Oswalt, Joe Manganiello, Larry Fessenden is in there too, of course.
Yes. Yes.
It's definitely keep an eye out for this. There's no way that this is not going to get picked up, because I think that it's way too unique. And it's uber violent too, like super ultra violent, like people getting split in half, and, like, crazy levels of gore and violence in this too. But highly recommend The Spine of Night. So keep an eye out for that one.
Wowza. I watched I Care a Lot by Jay Blakeson. So this is, the movie with Rosamund Pike, where she, like, I heard a little bit about this movie in the sense that it's odd that this movie takes a kind of positions her as, like, someone fighting back and maybe can be seen as the hero of the story. But she is, her character is, like, cartoonishly evil. She is just unbelievably evil. Just an awful person inside and out. And she plays her that way. So it's a weird thing to have her kind of at the center, being this just atrocious individual. And she kind of gets mixed up in her scheming of taking advantage of the elderly. She takes advantage of the wrong old person, which is Peter Dinklage's mom, and he's a part of, or like former Russian mafia or something. Like he faked his death or something, and he's hiding. I don't know how Peter Dinklage hides. Like it seems like if you're in the Russian mafia and you fake your death, but you're Peter Dinklage, I think people would find out about that.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, they kind of go toe to toe, and they like Blakeson tries to. I mean, he really goes for it and trying to make this female empowering movie where like she's outwitting Peter Dinklage and winning at every turn. But also, you got to keep in mind that she's an awful, terrible, terrible person. Just like 200, 500 times worse than Peter Dinklage. And I don't even know what Peter Dinklage has done in this world as, you know, being a part of the Russian mafia. I don't know I'm sure he did some bad things, but I don't think any of those things could come close to what Rosamund Pike does continuously throughout this movie. And I was just really concerned with like where it was headed, and like how it was going to end. But at the same time, I kind of appreciated it because I was like, this is honestly deeply fucked up, because you just have two villains going at it, and there's no one good at all. It's just awful people all around, except that the one villain, and I guess I say it with air quotes, Peter Dinklage, like he's not really that bad of a guy, but you know, he's your kind of archetypal, you know, villain, you know, Russian mafia, that kind of thing. But man, this thing goes to some unexpected places, does some things. I don't know how to feel about it, honestly. I don't. It's a fucked up movie.
Yeah, I've read a lot of like divisive things. Like it seems like everybody's sort of divided on this one.
It does end a certain way that is odd, in that I was really happy that it ended that way. And I was just like, yeah, fuck yeah, take that. It also ends with a DJ Shadow song, which
Ooh.
I did not guess that.
Nice.
Did not, almost the whole song. It's just like, wow, okay.
Which album?
Private Press.
Oh.
Blood. I think it's Blood on the Motorway. Is that the name of the song?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the song with Latif. It's the song that comes after.
Yeah.
You know, with the piano and everything. Yeah.
I love that song.
It's such a great song. Fucking incredible. So I don't know if that's clouding my judgment too, because it's just like, yeah, I love this song.
Nice.
Extra star.
Right.
But yeah, it's a tough one.
That's on Netflix, so I Care a Lot.
There's just a quick thing. At the beginning, she's kind of like introducing herself and what she does. And she's talking about how she cares about things. And I wanted so desperately for her to say, I care a lot, but she doesn't.
Oh, missed opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there. I saw Jacob's Wife. This is directed by Travis Stevens. Travis Stevens been on this podcast before. He also directed Girl on the Third Floor, which just came out a couple years ago in 2019. I thought that was okay. This one I think is significantly better. Now, Travis Stevens, if you're not familiar, he's a pretty excellent producer. He's produced a shitload of really great horror movies and genre films, and he just recently started to direct his own films, and this is I believe it's his second feature. It stars Barbara Crampton and Larry Fessenden, so
yes,
you gotta, I mean, right off the bat, that should be enough for you to be like, all right, just sign me up. It's a vampire movie, also. So essentially what it's about is Fessenden plays a minister and Barbara Crampton plays his wife, and she's wanting a little bit of excitement. She's getting bored in her current life. It's not a great marriage. It's a very kind of bland, typical marriage, and she ends up meeting up with this guy who she hasn't seen in many years, and they meet in this like warehouse where they're like working on a deal, like some kind of real estate deal or something. And turns out there's a bunch of vampires in there, and she gets, or at least one vampire, and she gets bit, and she turns into a vampire, and it's great. It's a comedy. It's a horror comedy, so I think that it does both. It straddles the line very well. It's not overly silly. It almost feels like a Fright Night or one of these movies where it's a modern movie, but it has a lot of classic kind of 80s style, horror tropes in it. So I really liked that. It is very bloody, like rivers of blood geysers, lots of blood geysers in this movie. Some of it's great. A lot of really solid practical effects, but there was a CG effect very early on in the movie, and I was just like, oh no, because it looks so bad. But fortunately, the rest of the movie recovers from this like really spotty. I mean, maybe it's possible that the effects wasn't done. I don't know, but it's it does not look very good. At any rate, it does recover, and I had a really good time with it. So Jacob's Wife, keep an eye out on that. This is another one that if it hasn't been picked up yet, I'm 100% sure it will in the very near future, because it's great. Barbara Crampton, she's so good in it, and Fessenden, of course, it's just to see their dynamic, like he finds out that she's a vampire, and then just like him being this like super ultra conservative preacher guy trying to figure out how to deal with his wife and her thirst for blood, and it's great.
The only other thing I saw is Another Round, directed by Thomas Vinterberg.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so this is Mads Mikkelsen and 3 of his high school teacher buddies. They embark on an experiment based on a philosopher that says that man is born with an alcohol level that's just a little bit too low, 0.05. Okay? So like just at the legal limit, if you can consistently maintain a 0.05 alcohol level, everything is just incredible for you. You're going to be better with your relationships, better in social situations, better at your job, all of these things. Like the positives, just huge long list, right? So they start out, these 4 guys, and they're all kind of like in different stages in their lives. And they're all kind of like, they've lost passion, like in everything, like their jobs, their relationships, all that stuff, right? So of course, he's at the center. He's just a boring history teacher, just a fucking loser, just an absolute loser. And he has no personality whatsoever. So he gets into it, and he starts to open up. His classes are getting livelier. All this good stuff is happening. But of course, you want to take that to another level, right? Because you're thinking if a 0.05 is good, maybe like a 0.1 is even better. And of course, they just like start getting shit faced. They just develop, they just develop alcoholism, and they get absolutely hammered, and like everything falls apart. And in the beginning stages of this movie, for me, it worked. It was pretty lighthearted. It's just 4 guys, kind of like middle-aged dudes that kind of lost interest in their lives, and they start drinking. And they have like flask and bottles hidden throughout the school so they can like constantly drink while they're working. And it kind of comes across as like a lighthearted comedy, right? But then it kind of tries to take this sharp turn towards the end where it tries to like introduce, these dramatic, like, here's the consequences of these guys' actions. And it just did not work for me at all, and just completely ruined the movie. And it's just kind of pointless and a waste of time. I gotta say, like, this movie is it just crashes so hard, because it introduces some like super serious subject matter, and then just but it only introduces it for like a little bit, just enough to like do like a tug at your heartstrings moment, and then it's right back to being like, yeah, this is fun and carefree, and you're just like, wait, what the fuck?
I 100% guarantee that this will get an English language remake.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, this just, it seems like there's no way they wouldn't, you know?
No, there's and it's such an easy movie to do.
Yeah.
Like it's not a complicated. Like I'm kind of surprised that this is a.
I mean, the hook, the hook alone, it's just like so easy.
It feels like such a Hollywood movie.
Yeah,
but it's not.
You get your it's an ensemble piece too. So you get your four guys. It's just like The Hangover, basically.
Everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah, you got the one guy's like really kooky. The Galifianakis character. He's a real weirdo.
Yeah, but they get into like the one guy's like telling a student like, "Hey, you should get drunk for your test, your finals, to graduate. Like you should get drunk. Like I got this water bottle full of vodka for you. You can do it, buddy." And then another guy just like completely gets shit faced like all the time, and his life is just completely in ruins. And it just I couldn't do it. It's just. It crashes so hard. I hate it. I hate this movie.
Another kind of interesting one I saw at South by Southwest was Sound of Violence by Alex Neuer. This is a movie about a girl who witnesses her father killing her mother. Now, because of an accident, she was left deaf. So she can't hear anything. And one night, so her father comes home from being in, I believe, Afghanistan or Iraq during that time, and he comes back and he's like all fucked up. He has all kinds of crazy PTSD, and he basically snaps one night and kills her mom. But because she's deaf, she doesn't hear it happening, but she feels it happening, and it leads to an extremely powerful scene, and this is towards the beginning of the movie too, where she literally can feel her father killing her mother, and the way that they shot it and expressed what that's like in the movie itself, I think they did a really excellent job with that. But what happens is she realizes that when she experiences violence, it causes something in her where she like it's almost like another sense or something where it shows up. Like she has this like sort of visual stimulation, and it gives her hearing back, so she can suddenly hear again, and it sparks this like lifelong study of her trying to uncover the sound of violence and what effect that has. And it goes to some pretty familiar places, but I think that the setup is quite interesting, and I overall liked it. There were definitely some like interesting ideas at play here. I saw Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Ooh.
Yeah. I saw all 4 hours of it, and I did it all in one shot too.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't have any expectations going into this. I did not like the original theatrical cut of Justice League. I thought it was awful.
No one did.
No
one.
I don't think anybody liked it, and I am a comic book fan, but I'm not like a rabid, hashtag Snyder Cut person. I was never into that whole movement. I don't think that Zack Snyder is an amazing director or anything like that. So I was just like, it was a failed attempt at a superhero movie. I moved on with my life. It was like that sort of thing. So, I didn't have a lot riding on this. But And in fact, I expected it to be an utter failure. Like I didn't think that there was any way you could like polish this turd. Like there was just no way that a movie that's that dog shit can be crafted into something that's like even remotely coherent. And I gotta say, he did it. Like Zack Snyder did it. He took a movie that was probably one of the worst movies that came out in that year and turned it into something that was not only watchable but quite enjoyable too. Now, to be very clear, it still had a lot of problems. Like it was not what I would call a great movie or anything like that. But he was able to piece it together into a competent superhero movie. And the crazy thing is, like, all of the main complaints I had about the original one, the theatrical cut, were addressed in this one. At least all the complaints that I can remember. Because I realized that after I started watching this is that I literally remembered nothing about the original one except for the Flash, which he's in it a lot more in this one, which is great. And Henry Cavill's mustache, the upper lip shit, which is all gone, by the way. Like that, they got rid of all that shit. So it honestly feels like a completely different movie. Like it looks drastically different, like aesthetically. It's something else. Like I'm impressed with what they did here. I don't know what kind of precedent this sets for like turning other shitty high profile movies into something watchable. It's like what they're doing with video games, but you know, they're patching movies now. I think we've talked about this before, like when we were talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, but either way, it was not nearly as bad as I thought. And I came away with it being like, okay, yeah, that was decent. The worst thing is the things that he sets up in this movie, I think, are really cool. Like he sets up the DC movie universe in such a way that it looked like it could have been really awesome. And I just don't think that it can go there now because of what happened with the theatrical cut and everything. Like, yeah, just the stuff that he created in this one. And like some of the things were like left hanging, like just dangling ideas that unfortunately I don't think will ever come to fruition. However, I don't know. Maybe Warner Brothers will just be like, you know what? Fuck that original one. This is the new canon. This is what we're going off of now, and let's just build from this, which I think would be a good idea. Dude, some of the stuff is so ridiculous, though. I mean, like all you have to do is see some of the trailers for this, like the black and white trailers with like everything is slow motion and like you have this like really serious music playing and stuff. They redid the whole score too, because I guess Junkie XL was doing he was working on the original score, and then they ended up like dumping him when Joss Whedon took over, and they brought him back to do the score for this one. So like the music's way better, everything's way better. The CG is way better. Like just it's all right. The only other one that I'll mention is Bad Trip. This is the Netflix one.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm interested in this because this is like you said, when you're in like the headspace that I'm in. This is a movie where I'm like, this feels like it's perfect for my headspace.
Yeah, this is a movie that feels like it came out 10 years ago. Like it's of that era, you know. It if you've seen Bad Grandpa or the original Borat, I guess even the sequel to a certain extent, or the Jackass movies, that's what you're dealing with here. So it's more Bad Grandpa for sure. It's done in the exact same vein. This is directed by Kitao Sakurai, and it is produced by the Jackass dude. I think his name's Jeff Tremaine. But what you have here is Eric Andre and Lil Rel Howery. They are two best friends who decide to go on a road trip from Florida up to New York City so that Eric Andre can meet and profess his love for this woman who he went to high school with, and then he ended up like meeting her again as an adult. And basically what the movie is just an excuse for them to do hidden camera pranks on people. So it's the same type of shit that you would expect from any kind of like Jackass or Bad Grandpa movie. You know, like I'd say that the pranks are a little bit bigger in this one, but they're still, you know, there's some gross out shit in here. Like there's a scene where Lil Rel Howery's character has diarrhea and he falls into a porta potty and like has to get some lady to help him out, but then it tips over and he gets like piss and shit all over him. And there's a lot of like gross out stuff. There's a rape scene in it where Eric Andre gets raped. So a lot of the humor is like just super lowbrow and it feels like dated. Like the humor feels dated. I just feel like maybe it's just for designed for younger audiences, and younger audiences still gravitate towards that style of humor. But I feel like it just, there's the current climate, the current social climate. There's just not a lot of room for that kind of humor anymore.
And I think too, because, you know, I'm saying like, this is the headspace that I'm in. I think this movie like is perfectly going to line up with the headspace that I'm in, because I'm thinking just kind of stupid pranks, you know.
Well, to be clear,
which is fine, but then to throw in and be like, oh, dude gets raped. Like, I don't want that in the middle of, like, right. I could be like, yeah, this is great. This is exactly what I was going for. And now all of a sudden a guy's being raped on screen. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I wanted. Yeah. Why did I want that in the mix of everything else?
And to be clear, like, the rest of it is pretty tame compared to like a lot of Jackass type stuff. It's far less mean-spirited too. That one scene that I mentioned is really the only one that I found like I was like, okay, this is just too cringe. Like this is too much. And I'm not. Read the Room. Like this is not a good scene to put in a movie in 2021. Like, and it wasn't funny either. Like it'd be one thing if it was like a funny prank, but it just wasn't even. Yeah. That particular joke wasn't even funny. But there's some other really good stuff. I didn't mention that Tiffany Haddish is in here, and she's the sister of Lil Rel Howery, and she breaks out of prison in an absolutely hilarious scene, and she's basically hunting them down because they stole her car. They took it because she was in prison. They didn't think she'd be getting out, but she did. It surprises me that so many people didn't recognize them, and maybe you know, there were situations where some of the pranks didn't work because they were recognized, but for the most part, like, they just didn't get recognized, which was crazy to me. But yeah. Oh, also, there's a really stupid joke that they do at the end. Like, I liked the idea of it, but I thought that, again, like, the execution was bad. They do whiteface at the end, and it was kind of funny where they did it. They go to the Hamptons at this like really snooty, like upper class party, and it's basically like White Chicks. Like they kind of look like the characters from White Chicks. But it's part of it is funny, but part of it is just like kind of dumb. But yeah, so I'm like kind of in the middle on Bad Trip. Okay. There's also a drug trip scene that does not work at all for me.
They usually don't.
Yep, I typically hate drug trip scenes. Although this one is like in the middle of a supermarket, and of course it's like hidden camera, so they're like, you know, knocking stuff off of shelves and doing all kinds of dumb shit in the supermarket, and people are like, "What are these people doing? They're on something."
Drugs.
Yeah.
Fucking drugs, they'll get you.
Let's talk about some VOD releases, shall we? On the 30th, we have Witness Infection. Witness Infection. That's great. And then on the 31st, we have Godzilla versus Kong. That's a biggie. Is that
boy, watch out.
Is that what we're going to cover next week? Are you down for some Godzilla versus Kong?
I don't know. What else do we have?
You like Godzilla, though.
I know, but what is there to talk about? You're going to be like, there's a gorilla. The big gorilla fought the big lizard.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I think there's plenty to talk about there. There's going to be a lot to unpack with Godzilla versus Kong. Don't you worry. Some early reviews have been popping up, and it's good things. I'm seeing rumblings of good things, but
okay.
I haven't specifically read anything. This is more like headline type stuff. Anyway, on the 2nd, we have This is not a burial, it's a resurrection. That's a virtual cinema release.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Yeah, it seems like that'd be one.
Oh my goodness.
You're into. I'm not. I don't think that I'm in the right headspace for that movie right now, but I'm more in the Godzilla headspace. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, I hear you.
Although it does look very good. We also have Every Breath You Take. This is some kind of drama with Casey Affleck in it. That's about it. That's all I have on my list here. There's probably more. Be sure to check our VOD release calendar on the site at filmpulse.net, and I'll be updating that as we go. I think there were a few things that came in throughout the week that I didn't get a chance to update on the calendar yet, so keep a lookout for that. On Blu-ray this week, we have The Ten Commandments in 4K. This is the 1956 one, if you weren't already familiar. We have Wonder Woman 84. That was unfortunate. We have The Bad News Bears from 1976.
Yes.
Classic.
I love that movie so much.
Me too, man. I love
it. It's such a good movie.
Yeah. As a kid, I really loved The Bad News Bears. We have The Day of the Beast from 1995. That's going to be in 4K. We have Perdita Durango from 1997 in 4K. All right, what else do we have here? The Greatest Show on Earth from 1952. Isle of the Dead from 1945. That's a Boris Karloff picture.
Yes.
Nosferatu in Venice from 1988. I believe that's with Klaus Kinski.
Ooh.
Girl Interrupted is getting a new release. Let's see. Amazons and Barbarian Queen. It's like a double pack.
Okay.
That's going to be on Scream Factory. The Big Bust Out from 1972. Looks like some exploitation goodness there. A Scream in the Streets from 1973. Looks like Mortal Kombat is coming out with some sort of 2-film collection just in time for the new one to come out and for this 2-film collection to be obsolete. Why do they always do that? Every time there's a new movie, like a new Bond movie is coming out, like here's a box set with all the Bond movies except the new one that's coming out in 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, just come on.
Gotta keep that train rolling.
Yeah. Let's see. We have The Bermuda Depths from 1978. We have another round from last year. That's the Thomas Vinterberg one.
I talked about it earlier.
We got Jungle Trap from 2016. That's an AGFA release. Run Coyote Run. Jungle Trap. I never even heard of this movie. I might have to look into this. It looks like that was shot in 1990.
Wait, is it called Run Coyote Run or
no? It's called Jungle Trap. The subtitle is like Run Coyote Run, I think.
Because I just looked up a movie called Run Coyote Run, and it sounds pretty great.
Who's the director? Is it James Bryan?
Bryan? Yes.
Okay.
And it's a psychic police officer working for Interpol.
Hey, maybe it's a double pack. It might be a double pack because it looks like there's a little plus sign on the packaging here. Yeah, this is interesting. So it says in 1990, exploitation auteur James Bryan pulled out his camera and made a decapitation-fueled horror movie about a jungle hotel haunted by kill-crazy ghosts in loincloths.
Yes.
And it was found 26 years later and finished. So this is another like Grizzly 2 situation, but this one sounds far more interesting. So I might actually pick this up.
I gotta say, I'm looking at James Bryan's stuff here, and I think I need to become a James Bryan completist.
The cover on this Blu-ray is really really awesome looking too. So might have to give that a look. Let's see. We also have An American Werewolf in London, some sort of steelbook edition there. Looks like maybe it's a Mondo one, but I'm not sure. We got Kingsglaive, Final Fantasy 15. That's one of those animated Final Fantasy movies. A Pain in the Ass from 1973. Stiletto from 1969. Rosebud from 1975. The Widow from last year. The Toll. That's about it. Oh, New York Ripper's getting a new release from 1982. I'm pretty sure this already came out. Blue Underground released this. It looks like maybe they're doing another run or something.
Okay.
But New York Ripper is pretty solid. I would definitely recommend that. That's a Fulci film if you're not familiar. What about Criterion's?
We got 2 from the 90s. We got Secrets and Lies from Mike Leigh from 1996. And we have Defending Your Life from Albert Brooks, 1991.
I never saw Defending Your Life. I want to see it.
Well, guess what? Now is probably the perfect time to do it.
Yeah. I love Albert Brooks, man.
He has good times.
And I've never seen Defending Your Life, so.
Same here.
So I'm looking on the list here on Blu-ray.com, and it also has Persona listed, the Bergman film.
Does it? Because that's not on the website.
I don't know if maybe that's a re-release or something. I wasn't sure, but that's listed here.
It might be.
Let's see what Amazon says. It says it'll be released on March 30th, so.
Well, Criterion's saying no. Not happening.
Well, all right, I think that's going to do it for this week. I thank you so much for listening. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @filmpulse.net and @filmpulsekevin. And if you have a minute, consider giving us a review on iTunes. That'd be extremely helpful. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.